Hello, hello, hello. I am Marlon Smith. So excited to have you here. This is another episode of The Real Money Coach. And one of the things that we do on these episodes is we talk about success, we talk about wealth, we talk about progress. And I'm here to tell you, tonight's show, you are in for a real treat. We have two very special guests. And one of the things that is so important is for you to understand, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. We have the gentleman who really was one of the key individuals that helped me believe there's greater beyond just my corporate job. And we'll talk more about that. And then we also have a gentleman who has given of his time and of his commitment to our country. And, with Veterans Day being yesterday, we wanted to really celebrate that because, again, the men and women in uniform that every single day are out there, defending our country and giving us the freedoms to really shine here in the United States. So with that being said, let's go ahead and bring up Tony Jackson. Tony, how are you doing?
Marlon, I'm awesome. I'm awesome. How are you?
Man, I'm doing really great. Feeling really blessed and very honored. As we started this on April 2nd. And, we thought we were just going to do, 1, 2, maybe 3 at the most. And we just have not stopped. Every Thursday since April 2nd, we have been rocking and rolling. And I know we've got people here that have been joining us every week. Type in the chat box where you're watching from, because this is interactive. This is an opportunity for us to really take it to the next level. So we'd love to hear from you. Where are you watching from? And, what have you enjoyed the most, Tony, out of these last 7 months?
Really, man, for me, Marlon, it's been the guests. Because we've had just some phenomenal people, and tonight's no different. We have the best of the best on The Real Money Coach. And so just, getting a chance to interact with our guests and
Right.
It's about relationships. I mean,
Yeah.
when we've had people from, coast to coast on here, from Michigan to Florida to Dr. Frazier or Bill Picard and so forth, and so many great people, too many to even name. But it's just been phenomenal, just in the feedback that we get, the feedback from the people, the emails we get, what comes in the chat box. And here we got Dr. Benita Harris, Ruth Bell, Alice Martin, 3 of the most faithful Real Money Coach listeners who are always there early, always on time, listening. Right. And we know we got a lot more out there. And I just want everybody just to put in the chat box where you're calling, where you're watching from. Let us know where you are. And I think, one of the things, Marlon, as we are approaching this week, and we said we wanted to really do something to honor veterans. Sure. I mean, and you and I have talked about, you got the election, you got the pandemic, you got all this stuff going on. Sometimes we can lose sight of some things that are really important.
Right.
And our veterans, the people who have served our country, we don't care if you're Democrat or Republican, that doesn't matter, right? When it comes to serving our country. And, I just reflected a lot on my dad. And, and I think a little bit later here, we'll even pull up some pictures and stuff like that. But I remember sitting at my dad's feet and just hearing the stories about him in World War II, being in Europe, serving our country there. And he also had another story too about how he was treated when he got back to the United States. And, and it's just really important that we honor our veterans.
Right.
And what I'd also like to do is just, if there's a veteran in your family, thank you, Adele, for joining. Euro Day, Tommy Day, Pam, thank you for being here. If you have a veteran in your family, I just want you to put their name in the chat box tonight. Just put their name in the chat box so that as we're talking about Veterans Day and we're spending our first few minutes here before we get into some phenomenal subjects in terms of Black enterprise. And we got, the one and only Dr. Dennis Kimbrough with us tonight, and we have a special guest too, very good friend and client of mine that's going to come and kind of represent all of the veterans tonight. But if you have a veteran in your family, put their name in the chat box right now. And I'll even start. I'll put my dad's name there. And, let's just put name in the chat box, and let's honor them just by doing that. I think it would be wonderful to do that. And so, Marlon, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think that, I think about my grandfather, who was in World War II as well as the Korean War. And then my Uncle George, my Uncle Melvin that served in Vietnam. And so, yeah, I mean, I just really am just very grateful, for the men and the women that have, served our country, to defend and to, allow us to have the freedoms that we have here in the United States. And so I think that this is really great that we're recognizing individuals and we have a very special guest who is a veteran, in the Marine Corps, 20 plus years. That's, that's woo-ah, right? That's no joke. I mean, Marine Corps, right? They don't play, right? And so, yeah, so I'm just really grateful, and again, I think it's very important that and you mentioned relationships. One of the things that I think we have to do is really, recognize those that have created opportunities for us, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
I mean, and that's what we're talking about. So yeah, I'm excited. And I see we got Sherry likes on, and we thank you, Sherry, in the Army, right? She served, and I love, Denise said Michael Williams, right? Marines, right? Ruth said my brother. JC, okay. I mean, you can go down the line, right? I mean, this is really what it's all about. Wow, Adele said my son, right? I mean, and so, wow, thank you everyone, because again, all of these individuals, have blessed us, right? Directly and indirectly.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so, I'm just so honored, man, because, I sit here in my home office right now and I look over there. I have my dad's flag, from his homegoing service. 3-gun salute. The shotgun shells are in that flag. I have a picture of him in that flag, and it means something. It means something very special to me. And I can remember I always like, man, maybe I ought to be in the Army like my dad. And I was like, nah, I didn't do it, Marlon. But mad respect for people who have served. And we got so many of those names are in here, and I'm sure at some point we'll roll some of those through as we're talking. But why don't we do this, Marlon? Let's bring up Harvey Jones.
Okay.
Harvey is from Birmingham, Alabama. And I've really gotten to know Harvey and his wife Linda. They have a wonderful family. Spent some time with Harvey. Lisa and I have gone up a couple times, had dinner with them, and just a really, really solid person. A solid person. And when you meet good people, they just make an impression on you.
Right.
And that's how I feel about Harvey Jones. And so when we're thinking of having someone to come on and represent the armed forces, the veterans. And there's a lot of people we could have had, and it's not that anyone's not important, but he's just kind of the first person that came to mind because he's on the show. I see him in the chat box a lot. He's very supportive of the Real Money Coach, and so I thought a perfect person would be Mr. Harvey Jones. So let's bring Harvey on up, and there he is.
Good evening, everyone.
Hey.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here. I'm glad you invited me. I count it an honor for you to afford me the opportunity just to say a few words about being a veteran.
Well, we appreciate your service. We appreciate what you're doing now. And I'm going to tell you something. One thing that sticks out of my mind. I went to Birmingham, Alabama, and Harvey took me to his office. Worked for the U.S. Postal Service. He took me to his office. And when I got in his office, I wasn't sure if I was in the post office or if I was in a Marine recruiting office. I mean, it was decked out with Marine stuff all over. And it was really quite educational too. So Harvey, tell us a little bit, just what has it meant to you to be to be a veteran in that service? What is it? What has it done for you?
Well, for me growing up, I guess I watched too many John Wayne and Roy Rogers movies. I thought I wanted to be a hero, and I looked at what the Marines was supposed to be all about, and I decided that if I'm going to go in the military, I want to be part of the best. So I took the challenge 30 days after high school, went right straight into the Marines, and it was just an awesome experience. I was in for 20 years, 2 months, and 8 days to be exact.
Wow.
Went in June of 1990 and retired in June of 1970, and I retired in August of 1990. I served, like I said, a little over 20 years and retired a master sergeant. And the experience is something that you can't gain anywhere else. In the military, you learn discipline, cooperation, coordination. You learn how to get things done expeditiously, how to aim high, remain focused, and you have to pray because you get in some situations that the only thing going to get you through is prayer. Your training helps you, but prayer is the most important aspect of being in the military. You've got to depend on God to get you through some of the things that you have to encounter. But
Yeah.
it basically, enhanced my ability to be a person that I have no fear. I'm not afraid of anything. I'll avoid some things, but I'm not afraid of anything. So I'll meet any challenge, any situation, and improvise, adapt, and overcome, no matter what it is.
So Harvey, what was it like? I mean, you spent 20 years in the military, over 20 years, and then and I'm sure you were overseas. You've done a couple. I mean, we've had some conversations, so I know that you've had some experience overseas and some close calls. During that time. So kind of tell us a little bit about maybe one of those experiences that you had, and then what is it like when you now decide to retire from the military and kind of get back into civilian life? What is that like?
Well, I think I told this story a little bit earlier, but I'll reiterate it. I'll never forget Christmas 1975. I was stationed in the American Embassy in Beirut. 2 nights before Christmas, about 8:30 at night, my apartment was ringing with loud noises and windows shattering. And I looked out on my balcony. I saw a puff of smoke coming out of the front of the embassy. The Arafat was one of the factions in Beirut at the time in 1972. And they had bombed the embassy with 2 3.5 rockets, basically demolishing the entire 6th floor and the front of the embassy. So on Christmas Day, I had to stand duty behind a bulletproof desk with a shotgun in my lap, a box grenade between my legs, and 38 on my hip and an M16, waiting for them to come and finish us off. But fortunately, they never showed up that day. But Christmas of 1972 is a day I'll never. It's like they say when they hit Pearl Harbor. That's a day that will forever remain in infamy in my heart, where I had to stand duty all day. I was an E5 sergeant in 1972, guarding the embassy, making sure that the enemy did return and finish us off.
Well, thank God that he protected you. So what was it like once you got out and you get back into civilian life? Is it a hard transition?
That was very challenging because civilian life is totally different from the military world. In the military, you tell people what to, when to, how to. In the civilian world, you have to try to use a little bit more persuasive leadership. So I managed a couple of stores for AutoZone and did some other things in leadership roles. And you have to learn how to convince people to buy into your program. In the military, you just give orders and people have no choice. They either obey or go to the brig. But in the civilian life, and even working with people that are above me, there's a big difference being in the civilian environment than the military environment. I miss the camaraderie and the discipline and structure and the order. There's a lot of politics out here that you have to deal with that I didn't have to contend with in the military. There's some aspect of it in the military, but it's no comparison. So I've had to make adjustments over the last 30 years, still working for the federal government. As a matter of fact, in December, I'll have 50 years total federal service. So I'm still working for the federal government, but it's a major difference between the military and working for a civilian entity in the government.
Well, awesome. Well, Harvey, again, we just want to thank you for representing the veterans on the Real Money Coach tonight. We appreciate you. We honor you. We honor all of all of the veterans, men and women who have served. And so we certainly appreciate you and thank you for taking the time out to be with us tonight. Hang out with us for the rest of the show, and we'll kick it a little bit in the green room afterwards.
Yeah, I just want to leave you with one thing. That one of the requirements in the military, you have to understand the code of conduct and why you're there and what you're doing. One of the first things they taught me when I was in boot camp was that I was an American fighting man. I served the forces which guarded our country and our way of life, and I was prepared to give my life in its defense. That sums up what a veteran really is. You know, a person that's willing to put their life on the line to protect our freedom.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
God bless you, Harvey. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
My pleasure.
All right.
Awesome. And so for all of you that, wrote a name in the chat box as far as a veteran, we encourage you to go ahead and let that person know, give them a call tonight. Because again, as Harvey said, individuals have truly stepped up, and men and women to really allow us to have the freedoms that we have. And, one of the things that I think is so important is for each one of us, as Tony said, relationships. And, Tony was saying, when I asked him, Tony, what have you enjoyed the most? And he's like, man, the relationships, the people we've had come on the show, the viewing audience. It's almost like a family, right? Tony, it's like a virtual family.
Man, 100%. And we are doing that, man. We're building a community, the Real Money Coach community. Many of you have seen that in the emails. We want you to opt in. We want you to go to therealmoneycoach.com. We want you to opt in, be a part of this community. And through that community, through Facebook and other things, we're going to really be just dropping some special things and special trainings and all these types of things as part of that group. But like you said, it's a family, it's a community.
It really is, man. Yeah. And I love, Brother Jay said, thank you for your service to Harvey. Adele said, thank you, Mr. Jones, right? And Denise said, thank you for your service, sir. Okay. And so, that it's a family affair. And when we talk about relationships and we talk about, I just want to share the power of information. Can I just say that? Right. Yeah. Listen, 1991. Okay. I know some of you are like, what? You're in your 50s. Yes, I am. And so 1991, I'm working for Hewlett Packard. I fly to Detroit, and I want to share this, Tony, because this is really the power of relationship.
Story, man. It's powerful.
And what happened was I went to a Les Brown speaker training. Now, Les is one of a great orator and 2-day training. And it was a Friday, Saturday. That Sunday, I got invited to go to church. Went to church, and after church service, I'll never forget, went into the bookstore. And in the bookstore, I saw this book called Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice. Now, this was 1991. September 1991. I bought the book, right? And I bought the book, and what was so amazing, Tony, I love to eat, and all of our viewers, they know I can throw down on some food. So I'll never forget, I flew from Detroit, had a layover somewhere, and then on to San Francisco. I was working in Silicon Valley, right? And I'll never forget, I couldn't put the book down. And this is no joke. I don't know if everybody can see, but there are pages, everything's highlighted, handwritten, right? I went through this. I studied this bad boy. And when I read in this book, and I'm so excited because when I read it, I'm feeling it back. When I heard about Madam C.J. Walker taking $2.02 and created the Pressing Comb and became the first female millionaire, I said, oh my goodness. I didn't say just first black millionaire. I said, no, first female millionaire in the United States. And then John Johnson, right, took his mom's furniture and took it to the bank for collateral, got a $500 loan, okay, to start Jet and Ebony. I remember this, man. And that was when I said, you know what? If they can do it, I can do it. Now, all my friends, family thought I had lost my mind. But I said, Dr. Dennis Kimbrough said, think and grow rich. And so I went ahead and resigned January 15th, 1992. And what I can tell you about this is I said, man, I got to get in touch with this man. And so he and his wife, Pat, phenomenal, 3 girls, 3 daughters, phenomenal family. And we flew him out, Pat, and his youngest daughter out to, we had a presentation in Oakland, California, 1993, January 1993. And my life has not been the same since. And so what I want you to understand for all of the viewers, I mean, you hear my passion. The reason why is because, as Tony said, we're bringing the best of the best, right? We had Dr. George Fraser on last week, Dr. Dennis Kimbrough on tonight. And again, it doesn't stop with one. One thing we got to realize is that we got to continue. And so this is one of his other books, What Makes the Great Great, okay? And again, I don't just read a book, right? I have, you know, I like enjoy it, right? I mean, you can see the highlights and I go through it. I study it. And so that's what I want you to understand is get ready, because one of my mentor, my friend, my brother from another, he joined the wrong fraternity, but it's okay. We got through that. He was young when he made that choice. Okay. Let's bring him up, Tony. Are you ready for this? Dr. Dennis?
Ready, man. I'm ready for him.
Okay, let's bring him up. Yeah. Dr. D. There he is. Oh, he was there for a second. There. Oh, come on now.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
How you doing?
I can only see half of my face, man.
I know. That is kind of weird. Move to your left a little bit. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
There you go.
How
are you doing?
Okay. So what's going on, my brother?
Hey, man, just feeling really good. I mean, I want to say thank you publicly, for, I know you were at Northwestern. I mean, I know your story, man, lost the car, almost lost the house.
Yeah.
So I want you to talk to us, Dennis. I mean, that was 1991. You'll be having 30-year anniversary of Think and Grow Rich, a Black choice. And so talk to us tonight. And, Tony's going to jump in as well. How important is it? That book 30 years ago, and I know, Napoleon Hill, you'll break that down, but how important are those principles 30 years ago in 2020? Real time, real life.
I mean, everything is based off of principles, and principles never change.
Come on.
Applications of principles may change, but the principles never change. That's why I tell my students all the time, don't seek achievement, seek knowledge. Okay. One of my favorite quotes by W.B. Du Bois would always say, paideia, always paideia. Well, what in the world is paideia? Paideia is the Greek term for knowledge, inquisition, scholarship, learning, taking in information and the like. So as long as you have that, you're going to be, as Stephen Covey and as Jim Collins, Good to Great, and John Maxwell, they all agree, you're going to be principle centered. And as long as you have principles, okay, you have the keys to the kingdom. Because principles lead to ethics, and ethics will lead to being spiritually based. I mean, the Bible says, work out your own salvation. What in the world does that mean? That means you have the tools, you have the resources, you have the information. Don't come crying to me, just use it, implement it, use the principles that I gave you. So principles are key.
Yeah, and so principles don't change, just like, laws, right? I mean, gravity is a law, right? I mean, it doesn't matter where you are. So there are spiritual laws, right? There's mental laws that manifest. So
and you can't change the law of gravity. All you can do is confirm it. I mean, to use the metaphor, it is what it is, my brother. But the fact of the matter is, and the principles are the same way. So here you are, you're trying to branch out, you're trying to launch your far-flung enterprise, and you say, well, I don't have the context, I don't have the money. By the way, I don't have any of the resources, but you got the principle. What is the principle? It's not your resources, it's being resourcefulness. And all you got to do is look at Black America. We are the most resourceful people on the planet because we never had resources. What Harley was talking about, his time spent in the military, and while I was listening to him, I remember, my father, he was a vet, he fought in World War II. Here's a man, a Black man, dodged bullets during World War II. And when he came back home, 1944 and 1945, only 4% of African Americans in the South could vote. I mean, my grandfather, before he migrated, to southeastern Ohio, he was born and lived in North Carolina. My grandfather was a butler. My grandmother was a maid, and they worked in the same home for a wealthy white family. Okay, so, you know, all right, this is my generation now. So when he comes back from World War II, only 4% of African Americans in the South could vote. Now here I am between my sophomore and junior year in high school, and that number only crept up to 6%. Wow. So that was right in front of my eyes, man. So what happened? Well, we became very resourceful. You know, and what's the number one resources that we used at the time? Collaborative effort. We all came together. We all joined ranks among, you know, focus on one common theme. And what was that common theme? Well, I'm in my study right now, and I'm looking at maybe 25 books that had a profound impact on my life. Books that I constantly dip into when I'm feeling down, when I'm feeling forlorn. Okay, so what do I do now? Blah, blah, blah. When I'm looking for growth and inspiration. I read them 50 million times, right, but I like to dip into them again. And an arm's way that I can touch right now, The Souls of Black Folk by W.B. Du Bois. Yes. And then right next to it is A Gift of Love by Martin Luther King. So how did we get out of not being able to vote, and now you have a black female who's vice president? Right. Well, you dip into Martin Luther King's book, and what does he say, Marlon? He says, any problem that Black America is facing can be overcome if we just keep walking.
Wow. That's what I'm saying.
Walking. And what is walking? Marching. Marching in unison. No one says a word. No one does anything. All we do is march. And that's why every time, you know, I would see John Lewis. God, I love that brother. And I'm just blessed, you know, to actually be teaching here in Atlanta. And I would see John Lewis at the airport. Sometimes I would see him on campus. I remember one time I was walking into the parking deck and I literally bumped chest to chest with John Lewis because he was on campus doing something, blah, blah, blah. And I always said the same thing, Marlon. So I hugged him. I told him that I loved him. And I said, thanks what you've done for me and countless generations to come. Well, I said it to all of them. I said the same thing to Bernice King. I said the same thing to Joseph Lowry, C.T. Vivian, and the like. And what does that have to do with our conversation? They were all principle-based.
There you go. And I think the thing is, Dennis, let's talk about it, and then we're going to bring Tony up. I want Tony, you know, to interact with you as well. But I want to say this. The fact that you recognize these heroes and these sheroes, right, who are principle-based. Yeah. Now I feel like the baton has been passed to us. So all of our viewers who are watching, talk to us about what we have the opportunity to do. How are we going to be the next change agents, if you would? How are we going to be those leaders where our grandkids and our great grandkids, when they see us, I'm talking about the people that are on this show, you help us with that, because sometimes, Dennis, we sometimes put other people on pedestals, and yet the same principles that they have lived by, we have access to as well.
Well, you just answered your own question. You were Socratic. You answered your own question. And, you know, we have been distracted. This particular generation has been distracted, where past generations were entirely focused because they were trying to reach a common goal and objective. As I said, we lost our focus. We were distracted. We think that money is the great wherewithal, or we think that recognition is the great wherewithal, and blah, blah, blah. And again, going back to the Bible, it says, the first commandment, I am the Lord your God, and you will have no gods before me. Well, what in the world does that mean? Well, whoever is out here in the hinterland watching or listening to this podcast, if I ask you to give me one term to define God, well, you might tell me that God is love. All right? So if God is love, tell me everything that you place before love. Some people might place their house. Some people might place their job, their career. Some people might place their money, whatever. But the generations before didn't do any of that. All they wanted to do is make it better for future generations. So you answered your own question, Marlon. What do we got to do? We got to have the same mindset that previous generations have and make it better for future generations.
Wow.
Which is critical. It's not how much, it's not how great, it's not how big, damn it, it's not how large. No. I mean, the only reason why you're here is to improve the life of somebody else. That's the only reason why you're here. So when we get focused about making it better for the next generation, well, we got a shopping list of things that we have to do. Okay, imagine this. Okay, so here you go. All right, Biden won the election and this, that, and everything. And now they're looking at the voting behavior and voting patterns and this, that, and everything. And I'm not here. You vote for whoever you want to vote for. You want to vote Republican? Let me get out your way. Go ahead and vote Republican. You want to vote Democrat? You want to start a third party? Are you conservative? Are you do whatever you want? And I'm speaking to Black America right now. But the one thing, Black America, that you can't deny, and I wish that sometimes I was on a panel with these Black conservatives, and hell, I'm conservative. I mean, I was supposed to have a podcast yesterday with Michael and Jerome Russell. Okay, H.J. Russell Construction, Herman Russell, who I interviewed, and I had his interview, and I'm tossing it up. I said, do I want to use his interview for What Makes a Great Great, or am I going to put his story and Think and Grow Rich or Black Folk? I'm going to use it for What Makes a Great Great. And I'll never forget when Mr. Russell told me, he told me that opportunity always comes dressed in work clothes. And I'm sitting back and I'm talking to my wife, and I said, Pat, I might be the last living individual who interviewed all of the Black godfathers of entrepreneurship.
Wow.
Herman Russell, S.B. Fuller, T.M. Alexander, A.G. Gaston, Henry Parks of Park Sausage, Maceo Sloan, John Kennedy of right up there in North Carolina, right on the tip of my tongue. North Carolina Mutual Insurance Company. Yes. I'm going and I'm saying, oh my God, man, blah, 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 blah. And so the fact of the matter, getting back to your question, Marlon, okay, so what did these gentlemen all have in common? Well, even though they were fiercely conservative, now how could I forget John Johnson and George Johnson?
Yes.
George Johnson of Johnson Products and John Johnson of Ebony Magazine. Put that amalgam together, and they were fiercely competitive. But the fact of the matter, they were all race men.
Right.
So we got some Black conservatives out there, and like you can espouse anything that you want. But one thing you can't deny, the only reason why any of us can get on these talk shows and share, our vibes and our words and our experiences is because somebody survived for you.
Mm.
Someone turned a cheek to the degradation, swallowed their pride, overcame the injustice, turned a blind eye to the racism, took the beatings, withstand the lynchings.
Come on.
So you can't deny it. You can't deny it. So you get up there and you can say anything that you want, but somebody got their ass kicked for you, my brother.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that goes back, and like I said, and it was about my father. I remember my father, ex-military and the like, and I was just blessed to have mother and father in my life. Every Sunday, that man shined his shoes. And I would sit with my legs crossed, holding up my head, holding up my face with my chin, and listening at every word of this man who was coaching me. And I don't know if he thought I was thinking about, but I was listening. And one time he said to me, and I'm looking at him now. I look back, and this man's shining his shoes. I'm saying, what in the world is he shining his shoes? Like somebody gonna call him for a job. Ain't nobody hiring Black folks, right? You be ready. Hey, those shoes will come be shining. And he said to me, young man, he said, life like this ain't gonna be this tough on the Negro. You gotta be ready, boy. You understand what I'm saying? I said, yes, sir. He said, do you really understand what I'm saying? And then I remember the March on Washington, August 28, 1963. It was only the second time that I ever saw my father cry. I saw my father cry at my grandfather's funeral back in Ohio, southeastern Ohio. And then I saw my father cry, just crying crocodile tears. Martin Luther King there, because you only had 4 channels on your TV. You had ABC, NBC, CBS, and then you had UH, UVN, whatever. And I said, Pop, what in the world is wrong? And he said, boy, you will never understand. Well, I understand now, to answer your question the circuitous way, the focus was on my generation. So what do I got to do? Continue doing what I'm doing, put the focus on the next generation.
Right.
On the next generation.
Yeah.
I pay my dues.
Yeah, you do.
At an HBCU, poor HBCUs, if you knew the beating that we take. And why are HBCUs critically important? Because HBCUs, they produce our professional class.
Right.
You've heard me say it before, Marlon.
Sure have.
And hey, I'm a product of PWI. But I'm 70 years old in December, and I've been historically black my entire life, brother. I don't care where I went. I'm historically black. So HBCUs, they only enroll, 5% of black students, but they produce 30% of the doctors, the engineers, the lawyers, the dentists.
The professionals. And now going to the White House. HBCU.
Oh yeah. And now you got, that's right, man. And just think of the beating that she hasn't even been in office a week. And just think of all the nonsense and bullshit that she had to go through.
Yeah.
Right.
In this day and age.
Right.
So what we gotta do, man, and I told my daughters a fierce racial pride. And I didn't know at the time, I said, if Biden does win, I told them the same thing Martin Luther King would always say, when he would have a big march and he would reach the next peg on the ladder to, equality and justice, don't gloat. Don't gloat. Just be humble about the next advance, but we still got a long way to go. And the next rung on the ladder is economic equality. And that's where you come in with your wealth coach and this, that, and everything. Financial literacy, the focus has got to be on, listen, we've only been free for 50 years. Okay, we've been in this country for 400. Let's do the calculus. We got here in 1619, all right? So we experienced 250 years of slavery, all right? After slavery, 100 years of Jim Crow. That's 350 years right there of the 400. So it's only been 50 years that we've been free. So the fact of the matter is, so we see a lot of nonsense going on in our community. Brother, 50 years is less than one generation.
Right.
We haven't had the time to solve these problems. Will you give us a little time? You just gave her, what did James Baldwin always say? White America saying, well, you gotta wait, progress takes time. What did James Baldwin say? How much longer must I wait for your progress?
Yeah.
Well, we still waiting on it.
I think
the critical aspect is wealth, and that's why your podcast is critically important.
Yeah.
Financial literacy, brother. They asked me a question yesterday about coming up with Christmas shopping and this, that, and everything. And I said, what's the worst investment in the world? And the host said, I don't know. I said, the worst investment in the world is credit card interest.
Yeah.
Don't you know the average credit card interest is approaching, 15%? And look at those who have a credit score of less at 640 or less. They might pay about 30% interest. Well, who has a credit score of 640 and less? That's Black America.
Right.
The average white household has a credit score of 705. The average African American has a credit score between 630 and 640. Do you know the interest that we're paying?
Wow.
You look at payday loans, man. Right now, you got more payday loans outfit in the state of Mississippi than you got McDonald's. You got more payday loan outfits in the state of Alabama than you got Starbucks. Now, the reason why they call it a payday loan, okay, tomorrow's Friday, and I'm a little bit behind on my cash. I'm going to need a loan in addition to my paycheck to get me through the rest of the month. Well, they call it a payday loan because the next time you get paid, you'll be able to replenish to pay that loan off.
Right.
The average African American who buys it, who receives a payday loan, forget the next pay cycle, doesn't pay that loan off until 7 months later.
Vicious cycle.
Yeah. And who owns all of these payday loan outfits? Bank America, Wells Fargo, Quicken Loan, owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Right.
So that's critical.
You're getting wealthy off of us.
Yeah. Discrimination, man.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you this. We saw this movement after George Floyd got killed, and you got all these corporations saying, I want to put this money in, and Black Lives Matter and diversity and equity. My concern is that it's just was the popular thing to do at that time, but there's really no substance behind it.
Well, I mean, it's because we didn't ask. I mean, right now, and I was on your podcast before, Marlon, and like I shared, right now you have slightly more than 4,000 banks, financial institutions in the country. We're going from New York all the way to California, contiguous United States. Slightly more than 4,000. Right now, at one time you had 60, then it went down from 60 to the high 40s, then from the high 40s. Right now, it's at the high 30s. Right now, of those 4,000 plus banks and financial institutions in this country, only 38 are Black owned. Okay, that's not the problem, that only 38 are Black owned. The problem is, who are these customers at these 38 Black owned banks? Well, these are, barely middle class to low income individuals who have very small deposits and frequent withdrawals. So that's the problem. We can't experience the compounding effect. So Tony, when you said, okay, you got Fortune 500 America, this is what we got to do. And we talking about, Ice Cube going on with the platinum thing and James Brown, the football player, and this, that, and everything. Okay, fellas, let me see your plan, and then I'll show you my plan. All right? And it's not going to cost anybody anything. It won't cost you a dime. Reparations, if you do this, won't cost you a dime. All I'm asking is for Fortune 500 or Fortune 1000 corporate America, give me 5% of your annual profits in Black banks. That's all I'm asking. Don't give me the money. Just put 5% of your profits in these 38 Black banks so we can experience the compounding effect. Because if you ever want to see racism, and I have the book right here, you want to know what I read? If you ever want to see racism, take a look at that. There we are.
The Color of Money.
Oh, yeah. The Color of Money, baby. That's right. And if you ever want to see racism, that's not me. That's her. And what does she say? You want to find racism? Go into any bank in America and talk to the first person sitting at a desk. You'll find racism.
So powerful.
Yeah.
How she breaks that down.
Yeah.
What's going on in our Black banks.
And it's still going on now.
Yeah. And it's just, they can't get profitable and they can't do what we need done in our community because they don't have the capital. They don't have the money to loan and do the things that the other institutions did.
Yeah. So Dennis, I gotta say one thing. Dennis, I gotta say one thing. Listen, and I get it. The top, 1,000. We have to take responsibility. And I have to tell you this, Dr. K, is that when this was, when I was exposed to this, you shared this before, and I went and opened up an account, a business account at M&F Bank. Mechanics and Farmers Bank, African American owned. Okay,
there you go.
Right, because we got to walk the talk. You with me? And so all of our viewers on here, I'm just encouraging you. Right? They even have what you guys both know, the African American bank that's internet based. Right?
Oh, I interviewed him. I had an hour interview, more than an hour interview with Kevin Cody.
Okay. Yeah. And so what I'm saying is my challenge is for those of you listening, let's put our money where our focus is, right?
Yeah.
And I just wanted to share that because again, my question was, we put people up on pedestals, but the question is, what can I do? What can I do? And being intentional, look, I get a choice. I still have my, other accounts, but I said, you know what? I want to develop a relationship with people like me. I want to show them that I value you and whatnot, and, and so on and so forth, so that, we can elevate. Just think if all 10 of us, you said, hey, let's get 10 of our family and friends, right? Right there, that's 100 people. That's 100 people. So I just want to share that.
And
that's an excellent point.
And I'm looking at the chat box too. You got Vivian. She opened her account at One United Bank. Dennis asked, is manufacturers M&F Bank? Yes, that is the one that is on Betty's Ford Road, right across the street from Johnson C. Smith University.
Yes.
And Denise asked the Color of Money, the author, Color of Money. Who authored that book again, Dr. Kimbrough?
Yes. You're talking to Mercer Baradari. The color, there it is.
The Color of Money. There we go. And so it's so important. And not the one thing I wanted to say too is let's not open up the account at the Black Bank and then turn around and go take your money out the next week. Let's leave it there so they can do some work in our community.
Right.
And you mentioned this word a couple times. You mentioned reparations. I found it kind of funny. Let's say it that way. Because a lot of people have been talking about reparations, and you hear this thing, well, where's the money going to come from? Where is it going to come from? But let COVID hit, and you want to put a stimulus check to keep the economy going. All of a sudden, we can find $1,200 for every taxpayer.
Yeah.
Reparations is never about where the money's going to come from. It's the principle that they.
Well, and again, you mentioned it's a principle. And see, you go back to this country, okay? The Declaration of Independence, 1776, and signing, the Constitution, this, that, and everything. Reparations could have begun at that particular point, because we talk about the 52, 56 individuals who signed the Declaration of Independence, but we never talk about a bill that was also on the docket that was hoped to be passed into law by the Quakers at the same time period that wasn't signed. And what was that? That you couldn't run for Congress, whether a House of Representatives or the Senate, if you were a slave owner.
Wow.
If you were a slave owner, you couldn't run for political office. The Quakers proposed that.
Wow.
And it wasn't signed. So that was, now the first act of reparations occurred in 1863, between 1863 and 1864. Abraham Lincoln gave 930 slave owners reparations to the tune of $50 apiece for each slave. Now, here it is, 1863, 1864, and you place that, what he gave at that particular time, in $20, and some of those white slave owners got damn near $500,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Exactly. That was the first form of reparations. Lincoln, in order to keep the Union together, he said, okay, if you give up your slaves, I will pay you. Woo! So if you talk about reparations, again, principle centered, and it won't cost you any money. So number one, place 5% of your earnings in black banks. Number two,
okay,
and I was just watching a show recently about black males voting for Trump. And I told my wife this even before I saw this recent show, why black males voted for Trump. And the host said, it's a macho thing, this, that, and everything. Well, I went one step further. I looked at Ice-T, I looked at 50 Cent, I looked at Jim Brown, the football player. I looked at a number of folks, and I said, what is the common core? The common core, these guys got trouble with black women. As a matter of fact, Dr. Dre and these other folks, as a matter of fact, they abused black women. And then I told Pat, I said, how many times have you seen Trump call a black woman nasty? How many times have you seen Trump say, that's a dumb question, that's stupid, I can't believe you got fired from the New York Times, that's why you blah, blah, blah. And there were 4 black female journalists who he really, now, and like I said, I'm going back, you vote for whoever you want to vote for. I am apolitical, I am spiritual based. But when you start disrespecting black women, then I got a problem with you, man. I know you're in his cabinet. Ben Carson, you're in his cabinet, and Tim Scott, you're a Republican senator. Come on, fellas. You and I got talk. Well, we can go anywhere you want to talk. I mean, we can talk. We can go out in the parking lot. You can't let them do that, fellas.
Right.
Why is that critically important? Because that's the second aspect. You want to talk about reparations. Won't cost you a dime. The Marlon, I'm going to repeat what I said to you before, what we got to do. Since so many Black women are the sole breadwinners in the family, if you would pay Black women what you pay male, dollar for dollar, you were damn near in poverty in the Black community.
Wow.
The average Black woman, her knees are buckling from the financial stress. Why? Because every dollar that I earn, at the most, she would only earn 68 cents. And out of that 68 cents got to come rent, car payment, utilities, buying clothes, buying food for her kids.
All of those things.
So if you paid a dollar for dollar, you were damn near in poverty in the Black community.
Wow.
And it didn't pay, because that's reparations, and it didn't cost you a dime.
Right.
It didn't cost you a dime.
Yeah.
Those are the two key points of reparations. Give us 5% of your earnings, and that's the final ladder to diversity. Everybody right now, everybody's an expert on diversity. You know, I'm not into diversity. Why? Because diversity is physical. Diversity is big on demographics. What is diversity? It's marketing 101. I want your age. I want your race. I want your sex. I want your income. Where are you born? I don't need diversity. What I need is inclusion, because inclusion is spiritual based.
Yeah.
Inclusion says, I see you, I hear you, you know, I value you, and you know what? You matter. That's inclusion.
Got it.
Big difference.
Dennis, I got to ask this, and then I'm going to let Tony, you know, this is flying by. But I got to say this, man. One thing you shared with me, and you shared in the audience, and you shared, you know, and there's two things I want to bring out to everyone. I was once at Dennis's home in his study, and I said, "Oh, Dennis, how many of these books have you read?" And Dennis said, "I've read them all." Some of them are I've read 4 or 5 and 20 times, right? And this is 30 years ago, right? And so I want you to talk about two things, Dennis. One, the power of reading, right? Wow. You know, we have this cliche, readers are readers, leaders are readers. I want you to talk about that, right? And number two, I want our audience to hear this. You shared this, and I've given you credit. You know, most people work, and we get my hands right. Most people work for 40, 50, 60 hours to play on the weekend. That's why they call it TGIF. Thank God it's Friday. But the real question is, what is your play? What would you do for free? Because if you can turn your play into your work, theoretically, you'll never work a day in your life. So I want you to share with us, because I believe our viewers right now, there are people that are sitting on their dreams, Dennis. And I'm hoping, my prayer is that you will share something that sparked that fire within them. They got to take, they take ownership, but that they understand that their gifts, their talents, there's something that they would do for free. And now the question is, how do I turn that into, work, right? So please, Dennis, and then I'll let you
talk about reading. That is critically important. Why there's a one-to-one correlation between reading and learning. The more words in your vocabulary as it ascends, violence descends. One-to-one correlation. Okay, the higher the vocabulary, the less the violence. That's number one. My mind goes back to one of my favorites essays, "Letters to a Young Poet" by Rilke, and Rilke is the affirmed international poet. Everybody's got his poetry and his writings. Well, one day an apprentice approaches Rilke and says, "Master, how can I be such a great poet as you?" And he sent Rilke some of his writings, and Rilke sent his writings back to him and says, "Don't write poetry because you want to, write poetry because you have to." So when we talk about reading and learning and growth and development and study, that's why you're here. You don't go to school one period of your life. You're in school every day of your life. Life is lesson. So I tell my students the same thing, man. You better approach life. This journey called life is really a classroom. And you better approach life as if, you're going to have tests all the time on this journey called life. You got to place yourself in the position where I'm going to pass any test that I can, taking in the information, growth, and development. Now, you were speaking about area of excellence. And at the centerpiece of area of excellence, there are 4 critical questions. And I want to give this to my dear friend Simon Bailey, who shared this with me. What are the 4 questions? Number 1, where have you been? We've got to account for our time. Okay. And you heard me say it before, Marlon and Tony, the normal life, 74, 77 years on earth, that's 30,000 days. Time is not running out, but your life is. So where have you been? Number 2, what can you do? Now, this is the heart of the area of excellence. What can you do? What are your unique gifts? I tell my students all the time, about their LinkedIn account. What does LinkedIn want to know? Why is LinkedIn cool? You got 600,000 folks right now with a LinkedIn account, not 600,000, 600 million across the globe with LinkedIn accounts, this, that, and everything. In order to have an effective LinkedIn account, they want you to plant your flag. And what do I mean by planting your flag? What's the one thing you do better than anybody else? That's your area of excellence. Ask yourself 4 critical questions. Number 1, what do I love to do? What do I have a passion for? What can I throw my whole heart and soul into? Question number 2, what would I do for free? If no one ever paid me a dime, if no one ever gave me financial rewards for my efforts, what would I do for free? So many times when I walk into the classroom, I'm thinking, well, this is what I was born to do. Like Henry David Thoreau said, don't die with your music left in you. As soon as I walked in the classroom, those 60 or 70 students or whoever who are in my class, well, they're going to sing my song for the next, 50 to 75 minutes. What would you do for free? Because when you're doing what you love to do and you would do it for free, your work is your play.
Yes.
Now, like you said, Marlon, you'll never work a day in your life. If I asked you to categorize what you do for a living, would you tell me it's work? Would you tell me it's effort? Would you tell me it's hard? Would you tell me it's drudgery? Would you tell me it's exhaustion? Hopefully, and I pray to the Lord of heavenly hosts, you would tell me that it's a calling, that it's a mission. Because if you tell me it's a calling and you tell me it's a mission, well, that's going to obviate the fact that you're convicted. And if you're going to use conviction, what do we know about passion and conviction? Passionate, committed mind can never be defeated. The passionate, committed mind can never be defeated. Think of Richard Black Choice wouldn't be here if I didn't have passion and I wasn't committed and I didn't have conviction. Marlon, I remember times when I would go into bookstores and I would ask for my book and I wasn't even finished with it. I didn't even have a title of it. I would go to a bookstore. At the time, we had B. Dalton's books and Crock and Britanno's. Remember those booksellers? And I would go in and I would ask and I would come up with some off the wall. I'm looking for this book. The author's name is Kimbrough. My first name might be Dennis. And well, sir, what is the title of the book? That's about blacks and wealth and maybe growing rich or something like that. And they would go on the microfiche. Remember microfiche?
Yeah.
They would look for it and they say, sir, we don't have that book. You don't have that book? Everybody's got that book. That book is a bestseller. I can't believe you don't have it. Passionate, committed. My wife thought I was crazy and the like. I remember the nonsense that I was just, this was something that I had to do. So number 1, where have you been? Number 2, what can you do? Number 3, why are you here? Now, Tony and Marlon, you started this podcast. I didn't. And you started this podcast. You talked about principles and everything. Well, that's why you're here. Why are you here? What's the greatest tragedy in your life? The greatest tragedy in your life is not death. The greatest tragedy in life is to be alive and not know why. Woo! I see people all the time that don't even know why the Lord blew breath into their lungs. Don't even know. And then last but not least, where are you going? All right, you got the keys to the car. It's in your hand. Just make sure that when you drive your car, you're looking through the windshield and not the rear view mirror. Those are 4 critical questions. And it all goes back. The fundamental aspect of that is your area of excellence. And it doesn't need to be big. It doesn't need to be bold. There's 50 million things I can do in my life. But I told my wife 5 seconds after I got my dissertation, after I finished my dissertation, I knew what I wanted to do. I said, Pat, does anybody on this planet want to know anything about Black America and wealth and leadership? They had to call me. And she said to me, Dennis Kimbrough, I'm so glad that you finished your dissertation. In other words, son, go get a job. Let's go. I'm tired of being broke. I'm tired of living off of one income.
Right, man. Thank you, Dennis. That's powerful. And, I just want to say, on behalf of the Real Money Coach and all of our viewers, look, we've got, so many people have shared. Oh my goodness. And one person even shared here, Evelyn said that explains why some people have such short tempers. They don't have the words to express themselves. Wow.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so this is really great. And I just want to say thank you, because I think what it's done is it's elevated all of us. Just feel the engagement and those 4 questions. I'm so grateful you shared that, because I wanted our audience to hear that. That was something that I share now, and and I do give you credit. Okay.
Yeah.
At least the first 3 times, but I've done it 1,000 times, right? But my point is, right, that's passing on the baton. But the thing is that for all of our viewers to understand that there's a reason why you were born. And
without a doubt.
No, I mean, really, that is it. And I think that we have to, think programs like this. I even put your website on because I want to encourage everyone. Look, these are classics. And as you heard Dennis say, right now he's got, 20 books on his desk, right? And these books, I'm telling you, listen, I've read a lot, but I can tell you, this is the book that inspired me to resign from my company job, right? And Tony's got his too. Tony, show yours as well, man, because we're not.
There you go, man.
You know what I'm saying?
Look at that.
Right. Autograph. Yeah.
Praise God. And you know what? I was working on my next book and blah, blah, blah. And about, 3 weeks ago, I got a phone call from the Napoleon Hill Foundation. We want a sequel. Thing. I said, and I went upstairs and told Pat, and she said, whatever, okay. So I'm officially working on the sequel. So they said, there's so many stories out there that need to be told. I said, okay, so I'm ramping up my interviewing and but if you want to reach me, make sure that you go to the Kimbrough Success Academy. That's all, KimbrowSuccessAcademy.com. That really is the reservoir of all my information and the like. Yes, I got my website, DennisKimbrough.com, but if you want more information of what I'm doing, KimbrowSuccessAcademy.com. You can hit me up on Facebook. You can hit me up on I know I'm YouTube and whatever. I'm out there, 50 million digital, platforms and the like. So I've been blessed.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you. And this has been really wonderful. And Dennis, in 2021, we definitely want to have you back, brother, so we can have some praise reports, so we can spotlight some of the people from today, November 12th, 2020, and how their lives have transformed. And I'm expecting we're going to have some praise reports. I will keep you in the loop with that challenge. 5%, at least 5% of your income in a Black-owned bank. And
that's an excellent challenge, man.
Yes.
Excellent.
Hey, I gotta ask you one last thing. I want to hear from you. I saw you when you got your ancestry reveal at the PNC.
Wow.
What did that really mean to you? That
I was in tears. I was in tears.
It down. I've heard of it before, but when she broke down how they track that one DNA test that you get your mother that doesn't change, and it just seemed like you were so moved.
Oh, I was beyond moved. I was beyond moved, and it's important that you go through the matrix line, the mother side, versus the father, because anybody here in the United States on the father side, between slavery and this, that, and everything, because my wife, she had her DNA, and so much of that went through Europe versus Africa. And I was thinking, Pat, I wonder if the same thing's going to happen to me. And when they found my roots, particularly West Africa, Guinea-Bissau, and I'm saying, oh my goodness, I was just overtaken. Wow. So that was a moving experience for me, and I am so blessed. To have that reveal because everybody's got a someplace, you know, and that was my someplace. Now I know my ancestry goes far beyond that, but just the fact that she told me, well, here is a location, and I will allow you to figure out the rest from that. You know, Marlon and Tony, when I got to Northwestern, the first book that we had to read, there were 17 of us all working on our doctorates in that one cohort. And I was the only black male, and there were 2 other black females, and the rest came from, oh man, Ivy League schools and this, that, and everything. And I didn't doubt myself, but I was a little bit overwhelmed and the like. But the first book they had us read was The Double Helix by Thomas Watson and Francis Crick. In other words, the founding of the DNA. And I would go back and I would study and I would read it. I said, why in the world am I reading The Double Helix when I should be reading something about wealth, economics, this, that, and everything? And it was all about a scholar is only as good as the level of the research. And I said, it finally clicked on me, man. And for someone to trace my DNA back to Africa, I said, thank you, Lord. Man. And see, Marlon, here's something for you, brother. See, I got to show you. You always knew that I was a Sphinx, brother. You always knew that, bro. Yeah, I'm a Sphinx, bro. Yeah, I knew that. I had to throw that out. Yeah. Well, hate the game, not the player. Hate the game, not the player.
Marlon, I'm gonna put it on record. 2021.
Okay.
Let's have our African ancestry revealed on the Real Money Coach.
There you go.
Wow. Okay.
Let's
All right.
do that in 2021.
I love it. I love
Let's
it.
make
I
it
love
happen.
it.
Well, fellas, it's been a blast, man.
Yeah, thank you, Dennis, for your time. I put on the in the chat, you know, please, everyone, check out this KimbroSuccessAcademy.com. And because I'm just looking at it and it's very, oh my goodness, I mean, it's very interactive and he's got, you know, he's got
I've been blessed. I got a hell of a team. When you contact him, go to Sherman Riggins. I mean, he's really at the center of gravity, pulling us together. I love the brother. He's just trying to take my voice, my words, and my books further.
Okay.
So I've been blessed.
Thank you.
Call me anytime.
Watching tonight as well. He was on tonight. We want to thank him for joining us as well. So
thank you. Thank you. So thank you, Dennis. God bless you, brother. Give Pat a pat. Okay. God bless you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. So Tony, man, was that amazing or
what?
what?
It was everything I hoped it would be.
Yeah.
I've been waiting to have Dr. Kim. Ever since I met him, I mean, in January, I was just in awe about, you know, because I knew about the book and then met him. Got an autographed copy, and we sat there in the lobby of the hotel for a couple hours.
Yeah.
And you remember what that was like? I remember I was sitting between him and George Frazier.
Right. Oh my God.
Man, what a time that was, right?
Awesome.
So that was an awesome time. So Marlon, a great show, man. I'm gonna let you close us out. We're at 9:09.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you know, I just want to say thank you, and you know, and for all of you that you know have been with us. I you know, we can see in the chat box, everyone really enjoyed, and I think we may have some you know, something that we want to share, Tony. Right? Is it ready, Chris? Can we bring that up?
Oh yeah, man. We got some honorary veterans we want to show. Take us down, pull them up, put them up there, Chris.
So yeah, we, you know, because again, you know, for the veterans in our lives, we celebrate and thank you, Denise. It's great to see you. She said, thank you for another great experience. Grateful for your commitment to this ministry. And yes, it is our ministry. And as Dennis said, you know, what comes easy to you? What would you do for free? What do you love to do? And you can tell we're just having fun. This is not scripted. We just kind of rock and roll. So, you know, that to me is the value. And again, you know, what a phenomenal program the day after Veterans Day. And that to me is very powerful from the standpoint of, you know, recognizing our heroes and sheroes, those unsung heroes in many cases who you may not even know, but really, you know, and I know we have few on this program right now that have been with us. And so we want to say thank you. And so, you know, I think that we're going to have some visuals that we're going to share. And I would love to, you know, go ahead and share that, because as they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? And a video is worth, you know, what, 1,000,000, right? And the point of the matter is this: just allowing individuals to understand and feel your heart, for you to say, hey, I see you, I appreciate you, I thank you. You know, that's really what it's all about. And I want to encourage each one of us to, you know, really step up and let's speak life to one another, right? You know, I know, yeah, there's, you know, right now our world is polarized, especially in the United States, right? You know, this election and so on and so forth. But the thing is that it's one of those things where we have to understand that, you know, we're stronger together than we are divided. And I'm talking about not just the African American experience. I'm talking about, you know, all of us as part of this human family. And so, you know, let's come together, right? And that to me is what we're really talking about here with the Real Money Coach. You know, it's so easy to throw a brick. It's so easy to pass judgment, but it takes another level of commitment. And as you heard Dr. Kimbrough talk about, and even Harvey, you talked about really saying, you know what, I'm doing this for others. I'm going to have my life matter for others. And so to me, that's the value of what we're doing. You know, we are committed, and we want to say thank you to each and every one of you for being on as well. And so with that being shared, I just want to say we're grateful for you. And with that, if we don't have the pictures, we'll bring them up next week. Tony, can you let me know, or someone let me know if we're going to show that, because, you know, want to close out. And so what you see here are some individuals. And these are individuals who, you know, for Tony and I, this is our family. And we wanted to close out with recognizing these individuals. That's Tony's dad on the right. You know, and, you know, you could just feel Tony's love and his appreciation for his dad, you know, talking about, you know, the flag, you know, when he had his military salute, you know, at his homegoing service. And, you know, and we just look at this. And then the person on the right to the left is my grandfather who, you know, George Buck Austin, who, you know, served in World War II as well as the Korean War. And then down on the left is my Uncle George, somebody who I, you know, really just, I mean, I love my family, and he was shot, you know, in military, and so was my grandpa, right? And so, you know, and then up above is my Uncle Melvin, who was, you know, a helicopter pilot. And so what I'm saying is that, you know, we just want to say thank you to these men and these women that have served. And we thank you, Harvey, you know, for, you know, we wanted to really just have someone who is a veteran, who walks to talk. And even today, you know, the principles that you learned in the military, Harvey, you know, I think you said 30 days after graduating from high school, went right into the military. And yet you are still leading the way. You're still making a difference, because you understand the value of integrity. You understand the value of discipline. You understand the value of focus and vision. And so we thank you. And so with that being shared, on behalf of the Real Money Coach, remember this: a vision without action is just a dream. A lot of action without a vision is merely a passing of time. But a vision with action can change the world. Stay blessed.